You're listening to Rise Above, a Rogers Behavioral Health podcast, where we sit down with Rogers experts who are changing the way the world views mental health and addiction. Hello, listener. Welcome to another episode of Rise Above. My guest today is Brittany. She's a former patient at Rogers Behavioral Health who has graciously chosen to share her story. Now, Brittany spent much of her life carrying the weight of early childhood trauma. And over time, that weight manifested as deep, persistent depression. Her journey is one of survival and of discovery and of learning to rebuild the life that trauma and depression tried to take away from her. Now, before we dive into Brittany's story, it's worth remembering that childhood trauma doesn't disappear when we turn 18. The brain and the body, they store those early experiences, and they influence our emotions and our relationships and our sense of safety, and even our physical health. Many adults struggling with depression, anxiety, and chronic stress are actually grappling with the long shadow of events they never had the tools or support to process as children. And Brittany is gracious enough to talk openly about those things, what it's like growing up carrying invisible scars. So without further ado, with me today is Brittany. Brittany, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's talk about your journey. What was life like for you before you decided to get help?
Um, I think I was moving through life in kind of this survival mode without even realizing it. On the outside, I looked functional, working, showing up for people, doing what needed to be done. But internally, I was feeling really heavy, and stuck. I was carrying years of unprocessed trauma. I didn't have the tools to understand why my mind was doing what it was doing, and what it was trying to tell me. In a lot of ways, I think it can be even harder for people with higher functioning depression to recognize that they need help, let alone actually reach out for it. Uh, Often because you're depressed and you're anxious, but you're also exhausted from keeping the mask on. And when anxiety shows up, as it often does alongside depression, you start overthinking things until you're stuck and you're paralyzed, to where you don't really want to do anything, even though your mind never stops. The only time it slows down is when you're sleeping, or somehow even that makes you feel guilty. So reaching out honestly feels like this big block in your way, even though you know that you need to do it.
So what was that tipping point? When did you realize I can't do this alone anymore?
I think it was the insanity loop, I guess that's what I call it, is where I just kept doing the same things over and over again. I think intellectually I knew what I needed to do on some levels, but I had never learned like how to practice those things. And so I think it really broke when I realized that I was like just kept hitting the wall over and over again. And I was like, something's got to change. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I keep adding stuff to my plate and it's only making things worse because I'm trying to make myself feel better.
Would you mind elaborating on that loop? What do you mean by that?
Like, so I guess you do something or you're feeling a certain way. And like I said, intellectually, you know, this I need to do XYZ to feel better. I need to
Mm.
go run on the treadmill. I need to go take a shower. I need those very simple things that you normally do on
Mhm.
autopilot. When you get in that loop, it's almost like you know what you need to do and you're being your worst enemy telling yourself, well, hey, you know what you need to do, but you're not doing it. And that starts kind of the snowball of like the depression, um being stuck, feeling stuck, not being able to move forward. And I think I kept doing that over and over and over again, where I would get into that loop. I would somehow manage to slip myself out of it. And then a week later, I was back in that loop and it was just exhausting. And I didn't know what to do with it. It was to the point where I just kind of wanted everything to stop. And that's when I was like, okay, I should probably do something about this.
And do you think at the time, was it like stress in your life that was like causing this escalation?
Absolutely. I think there was a lot of personal stuff going on in my life at the time. I was adopted at 17, and so I was um, kind of thrown into this whole new life as
Mm.
a teenager. And I don't think a lot of people talk about teenagers in, in care, because there's a lot of expectation that I think is put on them at times that says you're a teenager, you're old enough, you should know better. I think the best way I can describe it is like when I was put into this new family system, I went from a very dysfunctional family system to this new family system that talked about things and that didn't just sweep things under the rug and didn't pretend. They were real. They were raw with each other, and they were teaching their kids to do the same. And when I went into their household, it was complete culture shock for me, to the point of like I felt like I reverted back to a 5-year-old. I was learning how to eat again. We kind of joke about it, actually. Me and my adoptive parents, we joke about the fact that even though I came at 17, I went through all the phases. I went through the potty training. I went through like they still did all of that stuff with me in a different way, because I was learning how to function in a non-toxic, dysfunctional way. The floodgates just kind of opened at that
Sure.
time.
So were your new adoptive parents, were they the ones that helped you get help? Or how did that come about?
Actually, no. They um it mental health is very, I don't really know how to explain it. Mental health is not something that they were very versed on when I came into their family either.
Hmm.
And so when the mental health kind of, like I said, when those floodgates opened, it was a ride for all of us. None of us knew what we were
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah.
Um, and so I actually had a suicide attempt when I was a teenager. Um, and that sent me to an inpatient um, thing down in Marquette.
Hmm.
And while I was down there, that's when I first started even venturing into like mental health and like calling things what they were, and like, oh, wait, I do have trauma. Oh, wait, there is things going on that I need to address. Um, and when I got back home to my adoptive family, I think maybe they didn't totally know how to think about mental health and medication and, all of that stuff, that it was a really difficult thing to figure out, while also trying to figure out my mental health, because I didn't want to let them down, but it seemed like the medication was helping me. I didn't, so it was just this conflict of um but I definitely think they did help me know that I needed to get help, but not in the effect of you need to go to a certain facility and take care of this. It was more, you have a lot of stuff you haven't dealt with, little girl, and you need to take care of it.
And we will be right back. Everyone deserves a chance for recovery. That's what drives Rogers Behavioral Health Foundation. They're helping people get the mental health care they need, from covering treatment costs for those in need, to building clinics where care is hard to find, to funding cutting edge research. They're making real change happen. And guess what? You can help. Head to rogersbhfoundation.org and be part of creating a future where mental health and wellness thrive. And now back to the interview. Do you remember how you found Rogers?
I was um I was working for a pretty toxic company. It was one of my very first big girl jobs. And around that same time was when I was kind of coming out to my adoptive family, and it felt like my whole world came crashing down around me when all of that happened. And so I found myself back at that 17-year-old spot of like, what the heck am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I have nobody. I have nothing. Like it brought me right back to 17, dealing with all the stuff all over again, starting from scratch is what it felt like to me. And so that's when I found Rogers. That's when I was like, okay, I I can't do this alone. I had heard a couple of things. I can't remember who I heard. I think it was actually a suicide hotline or something. I can't remember where I actually learned of Rogers. But then I was doing research and I was talking to other people, and people were like, yeah, I've heard that that place is really great, and looked into it. And yeah.
So you started at Rogers in an intensive outpatient program. So we often call it IOP. So it's a long stretch of time, 4 to 6 weeks. Is it 5 days a week?
Hmm.
And then you're home at night. But so there was day one, you're walking in, right? Do you remember day one?
I do.
What was it
Um,
like?
I was terrified. But once it was actually, I've never actually, I don't think I've ever even told this story, but it was in the old Rogers building where they did the outpatient, whatever. And I remember going and I was riding up the elevator, and I was riding with, because there was like a bunch of different things in this building, all
Mm,
different. So I was riding in the elevator with like business people, and there was just a slew of people in the elevator with me. And as I went up, I remember the door opened and I was the only one that had to get out on that floor. And I was like, oh gosh, they know where I'm going. And so when I went out the door and turned left, the very first thing I saw was a Pride, "You're safe here" thing on the window. And I literally felt myself take a deep breath of like, okay, these people might understand what I'm going through.
yeah,
Um, that was my very first experience, even before I even walked through the door of Rogers. So that's kind of cool. I've never shared
yeah.
that before.
So you see that sign, and then you walk up to the desk to check in, and where does it go from there?
Well, walking in, it was very welcoming in the sense of like there was coffee laid out, there was snacks laid out. Everybody that was in there, when you think about going to treatment for the first time, you kind of think about like everybody's going to be sad because that's what we're going for. You go in there and everybody just seemed free, I guess,
Hmm.
or like they free to be whatever it is they were dealing with. And that I'm very much an energy person, and so I definitely could feel that energy the second I walked through the door. Honestly, it was terrifying, um, but it was relieving at the same time. And I felt exposed, but I also felt like I was finally doing something for myself instead of pushing everything down.
So you get into treatment. What were some of the most helpful parts of the treatment process for you?
I think learning and recognizing that my reactions made sense based on what I had lived through. Understanding that my nervous system was trying to tell me things. Um, and honestly, learning the language for the things that I felt for all these years that I couldn't quite find the words for. It helped me understand things better.
Can you elaborate on the language? What do you mean by that?
So, things like calling your and this sounds so silly, which is why I think I probably didn't include it, but like calling your feelings what they actually are. I
Hmm.
think for a long time I was definitely somebody who was like, I'm the one that's gonna figure it out and I've got it, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm.
But growing up, that's what I had to do. I had to be that person that just figured it out, that just did what needed to be done. And sometimes that means faking it till you make it. And I think when because at Rogers they give you, these workbooks and these binders to work through and stuff. The skills that they were teaching me, I think I was already semi doing based off of my self teaching. Um, but it taught me the why behind those things. It taught me the language of like, okay, this is a coping skill. This is a maladaptive coping skill. Both of them could work, but it's not always good to use that other skill. This is the skill you could use in place of that. So just the language of like what meant what, and pulling my lived experience together with like the clinical, like, okay, this is why this works. because that's kind of how my brain works. And so it was really helpful to me to have both facets of it.
Did you have any skills there that really stood out to you as something that you really that made a big difference for you, stuff that you carry with you?
Definitely the tip skill that they taught you. It's the skill where like when you start to get really overwhelmed or start to feel some kind of way about something, you change the temperature. And what that means is, so like I use this still today at work. Sometimes when I'm like, I'll be getting ready for one of my case management meetings and I can feel myself starting to get like that feeling in your, the anxiety that kind of comes up in you. And I'll take a beat, go to the bathroom and wash my hands under cold water for a couple of minutes. It resets me and I'm fresh to go back to work and like do what needs to be done. That was a skill that I learned from them that I never would have before. Other things that have helped that are the same skill. It doesn't have to be that where you can leave, like let's say you're in a situation, you're in a meeting and something gets really stressful and you're like, I'm about to pop. Having a cold water bottle can be life-changing because you take that cold water bottle and you put your hands around it, you put it on your thigh, like you give yourself that cold sensation to snap yourself out of this and get past that moment. And it makes it so much easier to move forward with your day and not have it completely derail your entire day.
That's just one of your tools.
Yeah.
And we will be right back. Real quick, I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about WISE, the Initiative for Stigma Elimination. It unites people across the nation to support those touched by mental illness and addiction. The compassionate approach champions personal stories and powerful connections, fostering healing by reducing stigma through evidence-based practices. Rogers Behavioral Health supports the work of WISE through their Community Learning and Engagement Department. WISE collaborates with a diverse network of organizations and individuals united in the fight against stigma. You can learn more about WISE, explore their 4 key programs, and connect with them by visiting the website www.eliminatestigma.org. And now back to the interview. So, what were some of the hardest parts about treatment?
I think facing everything that I had avoided for all those years. My birth mom used me for some things that I didn't understand were bad at the time. And so being able to call them what they were and be honest about how I felt and what it made me feel, letting go of the idea that I had to be strong all the time, just giving myself permission really I think that was the hardest part. The biggest thing, or I should say the hardest assignment that Rogers ever gave me was to write a self-compassion letter. That almost took me out because I don't know how to be nice to myself. And I never realized that until I was like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. And I hate being nice to myself. And Rogers gave me the space and the time to sit with myself until I was able to do it. And really, I think that was the hardest part, but the most rewarding part, because that kind of unraveled everything else for me, where I was able to be like, okay, you like yourself now, you can have a little bit of compassion on yourself. You can, discomfort is not danger, it's growth.
So that sounds like a pleasant surprise for you. What else surprised you about treatment?
The social aspect. I am socially awkward. I am anxious all the time, especially when it comes to social things, especially if it's not like a one-on-one situation. So the group setting freaked me out. But over time, I looked forward to it. It felt like you had people who got what you were trying to figure out and who were right there with you. You had people being honest in a space where you were like, oh my gosh, I would never say this in a room of people with the group of my friends, or what, those kind of things where you feel that safety of like, this is what I'm going through. This is what's happening. Like, I feel absolutely crazy. Can you help me? And them being like, hey, I've been there. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Like, just having that camaraderie, I was surprised by, because I definitely am not somebody who likes that stuff. Um, and then meditation actually grew on me. We did a
Hmm.
lot of meditation and like, I don't know what they would call them, but like verbal exercises, games, those kind of things. And again, not my thing. But by the end of treatment, I was like taking some of those things to work and like, hey, let's play this game. Let's do this thing. There's things that I still use. There's a meditation that they did in one of my very first weeks I was there, and I still use it when I'm having a hard time sleeping at night. So there's definitely things that are surprising.
Yeah. You go through treatment. Do you remember now, how does it work? Do they tell you you're done, or do you decide? I mean, obviously you can decide, but
Yeah.
they tell you treat your treatment, you don't need this level of treatment anymore. Do you trust the treatment team to know when you're ready?
Yes. I have full trust in my treatment team, and that's because we had what they called individual sessions.
Hmm.
And so they would sit with us and they would communicate with us. It wasn't them making decisions and us finding out about it after. It was, we're a team, we're working on it together. This is where we're at. This is what we're looking at. Okay, what do you think about that? It's not people talking at you. It's not people telling you what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. It's them sitting with you and saying, okay, let's try this. And then not just like, okay, we're going to do this and then be done with it. It's, let's try this. Okay, let's come back and talk about it. What worked and what didn't work. Okay, maybe that doesn't work for you. Let's add this to it. So it's very individualized and very like, you know what's going on at all times. So I fully trusted my treatment team, especially in those parts of like, okay, you're ready to get out of the nest, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So do you remember maybe the last day or maybe the first day you woke up and you didn't have to go back to treatment? What was that feeling like?
I definitely was sad the last day because,
Hmm.
you grow relationships and um, and that's another thing that I don't think Rogers talks about a lot, but they're really good about teaching you to set those boundaries, even with the trauma bonding.
Hmm.
I think it's super easy for people to, we're in the same mess, let's fight it out together. They're really good about helping you set those boundaries of like, we're all in the same group, but we're not all in the same storm. And so be careful about, and that's something that really stood out to me. But anyways, the last day they do these little cards, and everybody in the group writes a wish for you. There was like three things on the card that they would write for you, and the therapist would do it, but then everybody else in the group would also do it. And some of those were super like, oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that person felt that way about the things I was sharing. I didn't know that, so it was something to be able to take away from it and say, even though I was trying to figure stuff out, I was still showing up, which said something to someone else. I was still talking, so that said something to someone else. So it's not always like head to the ground, digging through the dirty, nasty trauma all the time. Sometimes it's learning how to be normal, learning how to just function in an everyday environment, because I think a lot of times with our trauma, we get stuck and we can't see outside of this bubble that we have.
Hmm.
And sometimes if we can just learn that it's okay to sometimes it's okay to just get up and have to shower that day. Like sometimes that's okay. That's not a good normal. That's not a good baseline, but it's definitely okay if you have those days to just take a day.
Right.
Um yeah, so I don't know if I remember all of that, but I definitely do remember those notes and then getting them all at the end and being like, "Oh my gosh, I had no
Hmm.
idea."
Obviously, it's not flipping a switch, right? And you're
Mhm.
magically better, right? So how do you take care of your mental health now?
I think the biggest thing, kind of like I said before, was just knowing that it's non-linear.
Hmm.
Being able to have compassion on myself, like, and my healing and the when things come up, because, we don't always know when things are going to come up. It's not like we plan bad days. So being able to have compassion on those bad days, um, and that healing isn't about becoming someone different. It's about returning to yourself. Um, I feel more grounded now. Um, I respond instead of react. I can notice the patterns, kind of like I was saying, that cycle of like running into the wall. I can notice when that starts to happen, and take the action steps to actually pull myself out of it before it becomes a big giant snowball and I can't get up. I guess life just feels more spacious.
Hmm. Nice. What would you say to someone who maybe is a little scared to ask for help, that is in a dark place?
I think needing help doesn't mean that you're broken. It means that you're human. Asking for support is an act of strength and not weakness. I think giving yourself the compassion and being able to, at the very least, say the feeling.
Yeah.
Take the first step.
And what do you wish people understood better about mental health?
That it's not about being strong enough, that it's about understanding yourself. Mental health isn't a character flaw. It's
Mhm.
honestly a part of being human and being alive. And so everybody um, should know how to manage their mental health, because we all have mental and we all need it to be healthy. And so it all just matters on if you're paying attention to it or not.
So, what would you say to someone? What would your first step be to encourage someone to find help?
Just start noticing. Notice when your chest starts to feel heavy, or when something feels off, or you feel like the world or your day is just getting to be too much. You don't have to fix everything all at once. You just need to take the next honest step. And sometimes that step is calling Rogers or texting a friend and saying, "Hey, I'm having a real bad day today." Sometimes it's just going to take a walk. It just depends on you and what you need. But until you learn what that is, you're going to stay stuck in the loop.
What about Brittany today? What gives you hope? What makes you happy? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm definitely nowhere I thought I would be. That 17-year-old girl definitely would have never believed me if I told her where I was today. I'll tell you that. Um, I guess what gives me hope is seeing how much can change when you give yourself permission to heal. Knowing that growth is always possible, feeling connected to yourself in a way that um, I didn't really think was possible before. Knowing there's no timeline. Healing is a life journey and not just one single destination. Um, I don't know. I think the biggest thing I've learned is healing isn't about becoming a different person. It's about finally giving yourself permission to come home, to who you've always been. There's no timeline, there's no finish line, there's no perfect version you're supposed to reach. It's kind of this lifelong relationship with yourself. And the relationship only seems to get stronger the more honest you are with yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Rogers taught me was, once you're honest with yourself and you can really call a spade, you can start working with something. Um, if I had anything to say to the people listening, I guess it would be, if you're listening and you're in a place that feels heavy or confusing or too much, I want you to know that you're not broken and you're not behind. You're human and you deserve support and compassion and space to figure things out. You don't have to take 10 steps, just take the honest one. Uh, and just keep going. I always say, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Brittany, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your journey.
Thank you.
Well, listener, if there's one thing today's episode reminds us of, it's that childhood trauma doesn't define a person, but it does leave an imprint. Healing isn't about erasing the past, but it's about understanding it, naming it, and slowly rewriting the patterns that it left behind. And as Brittany proudly showed us, that process is possible at any age and in any season of life. If Brittany's story resonated with you, or if you know someone that you think it might resonate with, feel free to share this podcast with them, and be sure to like and subscribe to be notified of new episodes. Thanks for listening. This has been Rise Above, a podcast from Rogers Behavioral Health. And as always, if you or someone you care about is struggling with a mental health or substance use disorder, visit rogersbh.org for a free mental health screening. Until next time.